Got a sloppy shifter? Today in the garage, I'll show you how to get a factory tight feel for just a few bucks and a little DIY time. So inside the car, we've already removed the plastic trim that goes around the shifter, and it's held in with 4 retaining clips located here. If you pull straight up on the back and dislodge the clips there, you can pull up and back on the front, and that will free the trim. Once that's out of the way, you'll have one electrical connector on the front and 4 12mm bolts around the base of the shifter. Now the shifter arm comes down and connects to the shifter linkage with one 14mm bolt. We're going to mark the position on the shifter linkage with a paint pen so that when we reinstall it, we'll have it in the right spot. Now if you look carefully, there's already some marks on the shifter linkage. That's because I actually removed the shifter just a few weeks ago to repair the shift lock, which was likely caused by the shaking because the bushings were destroyed. Now the previous owner did replace the bushings on this shifter, but while at the local pick-apart on an unrelated trip, I found a shifter in much better condition than mine, so I went ahead and grabbed it, and we're doing this all over again. With the linkage separated from the shifter arm, we can lift the whole assembly up, rotate it slightly, and then lift it the rest of the way out. Now with that out of the way, we can move over to the bench and work on accessing the bushings. Now our replacement shifter is in much better shape overall, but it's considerably more grimy than the one that came out of the car. But having it out of the car gives us an opportunity to clean it up before reinstalling. Because it looks like this one has not been cleaned in quite some time, I'm going to start with a very diluted simple green solution on a microfiber, and that's just going to help get rid of any grime and grease that's built up over the years on this handle. And once that's wiped down, I'm just going to get a fresh, clean portion of my rag, and I'm going to add a little bit of plastic restorer from Chemical Guys. It's my favorite interior cleaning product just because of the smell. Usually you can use just a lot of elbow grease and get really aggressive to push that rag into all the nooks and edges on the shifter. But I'm going to run over all the black hard plastic ridges and crevices using a pick and another rag with almost no pressure. I'm just scraping loose any of the caked on gunk on the inside of some of those hard to reach areas. This may seem like a bit much, but keep in mind this piece is 25 years old and some of these plastics are pretty fragile, so you want to do this pretty gingerly. Now, as a matter of function on most vehicles, the majority of the critical controls have to be within arm's reach. So the shifter usually ends up awfully close to the cup holders. So anytime there's a spill, there's a pretty good chance the shifter is where all that Dr. Pepper will end up accumulating. And if you have a need to do the shifter bearings, this is the ideal time to make sure all the replacement parts are very clean. And around these 4 JIS screws, there's quite a bit of grime. So I'm going to go ahead and take those out. And with the screws removed, that leaves the plastic exposed so I can get all that clean as well. Now as I mentioned before, you want to be pretty careful with this, just because the plastic likely has been baking in the sun for the last couple of decades. Now if you need to get a deeper clean, you can remove the 2 screws at the front of the shifter handle and pull up for more access. But in order to get the plastic cover off completely, you would have to either unpin the 2 blue wires from the connector or unpin the wires at the overdrive button. But even without removing the handle, you can really get access to pretty much every place on here. And it seems a bit extreme, but I'm going to go ahead and clean those screws as well. And with the cleaning done and the plastic cover back together, we can start focusing on the real reason we're here. So I'm going to go ahead and move the shifter back to the park position and take a minute to clean my workspace so we don't get any of that grime back on the shifter as we're moving it around. The rubber gasket that attaches to the base plate has 4 metal sleeves in the holes at each corner. Those will need to be removed so we can squeeze the lip of the rubber on top of the base plate and pull it through the bottom. And we'll need to do that on all 4 sides so that we can get a good look at our bushings. You can see in the video that the rubber is actually still pretty pliable. If yours is very brittle, I would suggest you use a product called AT205. It works well at rejuvenating rubber. Unfortunately, on my shifter, the rubber around the shifter arm itself is torn, which a little chemistry in a bottle won't fix. However, it does make it easy to slide it out of the way. If yours is not torn, take care when sliding the rubber piece down the shifter arm so it all stays together. It doesn't need to go all the way down, just enough to expose the hardware on the bottom of the base plate. Now the bolt that's exposed right here runs through a tube attached to the shifter arm and is sandwiched between 2 tabs. The diameter of the tube is necessarily larger than the bolt, and so bushings are used to constrain the bolt while allowing it to rotate. But over time the bushings wear out and will need to be replaced. The head of the bolt is a 14mm, and the corresponding side is a 12mm nut. And you should be able to slide that bolt out once the nut is loose. And the exposed cylinder is where our bushings are going to go. Now if you've had that shifter wobble for a long time, there may be nothing left of the bushing, like in this example. If you still have some bushing material in there, you'll have to clean all that out before you insert the new bushings. Now these bushings you can get from Toyota. I'll include the part number here. And they're very inexpensive. I paid $1.42 each for these. I only need 2, but if you have the 4-wheel drive version of the 4Runner, you'll need 4. Once you have the bushings in, you just have to do a little work to align the cylinder with the holes and the tabs. On mine, I just used a pair of pliers to bend the tabs apart slightly so that I've got plenty of room and I can tighten that bolt down and push the tabs back into place. And a few taps from my improvised hammer will knock our bolt home. I can come back on the other side with that 12mm nut, and I use the impact to zip this nut off, but I'm going to use a ratcheting wrench to hand tighten this hardware. You want the bolt and cylinder secure, but not so tight that it's crushing the ends of the bushings we just installed. And that's all it's really going to take to resolve the wobbly shifter. If there's still some looseness you can feel in the stock, confirm that the hardware is all secured tightly. And once you've done that, we can start reassembling in the reverse order. We'll start by reinstalling the rubber gasket on the bottom of the base plate. We're just going to squeeze the tabs and deform them a little bit to fit through the holes on the base plate, and once through they'll expand back to their normal shape. Once all 4 corners are on, we'll reinsert the metal sleeves. And give it a little test to make sure everything still feels solid. And we can bring this back to the car. And just opposite of when we took it out, we're going to insert, rotate, slide a little to the left, and then line the holes up with the corresponding threaded holes in the tunnel. And from there, the 12mm bolts can go back in. I'm just going to put these in a few threads by hand so that I can move the shifter around to make sure I get all 4 holes aligned properly. Then we're going to take our plastic connector and reattach our wiring harness. And the socket and ratchet will work just fine, but for me, I set my impact to the lowest torque setting and zip these 4 bolts back in place. And once in, we're going to give our bolted shifter a quick test to make sure that everything is still solid. And I'm liking the way everything feels up top, so we'll come back underneath the car and grab our shift linkage. Set it back on the shifter arm. And now the shifter arm can move slightly, and we're going to use that movement to make sure that we line up the shifter arm back to where the previous shifter was on the linkage. So I'm just going to hold it in place with one hand and use a ratcheting wrench to cinch down that nut, and we'll be done under the car. And back up top, I'm going to release the shift lock and move the shifter back so that I can get the plastic bezel trim back on. And with a little pressure in the four corners, it's secure. And now the only thing left to do is replace the cover on the shift lock, and the shifter is defeated. If you've made it this far, thanks for sticking around. If this video helped you out, consider giving it a like and subscribe. If you've got your own tips and tricks, leave them in the comments below. And I'll see you guys next time in the garage.